I have to say it's nice to see so many people here this morning and the vast majority of you back this afternoon. So let's try to get through this in a timely manner. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $1,605,210, which includes $896,210 from user fees and $709,000 from other revenues to pay the current expenses and debt of the sewer department. What is your pleasure on Article 7?
Move Article 7.
Moved by Butch Sutherland, second by Ed English. Any questions or comments on Article 7? Seeing none, we will vote on Article 7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Excuse me. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 7 is adopted. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $900 and pay each of the trustees $300 for the purpose of paying the trustees of public funds for services rendered and approve the expenditure from the income of the trust funds for that purpose. What is your pleasure on Article 8?
Move Article 8.
Moved by Butch Sutherland. Is there a second? David Martin. Any questions or comments on Article 8? Seeing none, we will vote on Article 8. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 8 is adopted. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $1,500 for the purpose of having the public trust funds audited and approve the expenditure of $1,500 from income of the trust funds to pay for the annual audit. What is your pleasure on Article 9?
I'll move the article.
Moved by Mary Riley, second Jennifer Maxim. Any questions or comments on Article 9? Ed?
What does that article all mean?
What's that?
I don't understand the article.
This is just, they can't spend any money out of the trust funds without the voters' approval, and this is just to take $1,500 out to have it audited, which is required each year. We do this every year. They just need the voters' approval to do what they're required to do, quite frankly. Good question, though. Any other questions or comments on Article 9? Seeing none, we'll vote on Article 9. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 9 is adopted. Article 10. Shall the voters of the town of Woodstock urge the state of Vermont to A, halt any new or expanded fossil fuel infrastructure, i.e. transmission pipelines, electrical generation plants, and/or industrial storage facilities. B, statutorily commit to at least 90% renewable energy by 2050 for all people in Vermont with firm interim deadlines. And C, ensure that the transition to renewable energy is fair and equitable for all residents with no harm to marginalized groups or rural communities. What is your pleasure on Article 10? Moved by Jill Davies. You want to second that, Ed? All right. Any questions or comments on? Yes, Ann.
Thank you. I'm Ann McSood. I would like to comment on this, and this article and the next one, Article 11, I think are the only two that directly deal with climate change in all of our articles. And fortunately and unfortunately, this is non-binding and it doesn't need any funding. But it seems very important, given the ambitious goals that the state of Vermont set in 2005 to reduce carbon emissions by 50% by 2028, I think. And when 350.org, the national organization, the Vermont chapter, looked at what the state had done a couple of years ago, it found out that not only were the emissions not going down, but they were up 16% over 1990 levels. So I think that this is an effort to take the message to the individual towns. Last year, 39 towns approved of this. This year, 13 have it on the ballot, including us. I know that there are more than 600 towns in Vermont and 9 cities, so it's not a lot, but it's growing, that the kind of the responsibility for climate change is coming to be more and more local commitments. And in this town, we've already done a lot with the weatherization, with the solar, the energy group from Sustainable Woodstock, with the East End Park. So I just hope that this one and the next, which comes right down to us as a town, will be heartily approved, and if not binding, that we will bind ourselves to it, because it just strikes me that the other 35 articles will be moot if we don't start to turn around climate change. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions about Article 10? Yes.
Deb Hawthorne. I speak in support of this article. The Addison County natural gas pipeline may not be much in our awareness here in the Upper Valley, but for people in the northwestern part of the state, it's been an enormous issue. And it's a case in point of where the fossil fuel industry has really forced its will upon the people by effectively taking people's land by eminent domain and then installing pipeline that is not fully safe. So there are people in that region who have had pipelines installed or threatened to be installed right through their barnyards, right near their barns and their animals. And these pipelines are not sufficiently sealed. They are leaking and they're subject to explosion in the future. And all the regulatory agencies have just waved this through. For whatever reason, you can speculate about that. But in any case, I think it's really important to put in place some mechanisms for halting the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure, particularly infrastructure that has not been fully vetted and fully approved by the people. So I thank Annie for proposing this article, and I support both Articles 10 and 11.
Any other questions or comments on Article 10? Seeing none, we will vote on Article 10. All those in favor of Article 10, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 10 is adopted. Article 11. Shall the voters of the town of Woodstock request the town to do its part to meet these demands by committing to efforts such as A. Protecting town lands from fossil fuel infrastructure, denying easements or agreements for any pipelines crossing town lands. B. Weatherizing town buildings and schools. C. Other initiatives to improve residents' quality of life while helping to reduce overall energy use. And D. Encourage landowners, municipalities, and farmers to implement practices that build the soil carbon sponge to cool the planet and mitigating flooding and drought. What is your pleasure on Article 11?
I move.
Moved by Ed English. Is there a second? Sure, David Martin. Questions or comments on Article 11? I know we've talked about it. Excuse me. Sorry about that. If there are no comments on Article 11, we will now vote on it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 11 is adopted. Article 12. shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the support of the Woodstock Area Job Bank to connect individuals and businesses with members of our community who are seeking work and volunteer opportunities. This is by petition. This will be an Australian ballot article on Tuesday. We cannot act on it, but we certainly can entertain any comments or questions about this article. Is there anyone who would like to speak on behalf of the Job Bank? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Article 13. Shall the town of Woodstock vote to appropriate the sum of $5,000 for Woodstock Community TV Channel 8 Public Access Television to help support coverage of ongoing events within the town of Woodstock, such as today? This is also by petition. It is Australian ballot. Would anyone like to make a comment on behalf of Channel 8? Patrick?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, Patrick Proctor, I just want to say that as somebody who has a full-time job that often takes me out of town periodically, having this as a resource, I think, for people in town who maybe have external commitments or things where they have to be away and then come back is extremely valuable, especially when participating in civic process and kind of knowing what happened at a week's meeting when you weren't able to attend or weren't able to, be in town. So I think for me personally, and I think for a lot of other people, it has value for kind of giving virtual attendance to a lot of these various committees and subcommittees and meetings and that kind of thing.
Thank you. Yes, Ed?
Here I go again. This channel, or I can't get channel, you folks, because I don't have the right TV, I guess. Is it only on contest that you show all of these different meetings and?
You can find some online, can't you, Macy?
Yes, you can. WCTV8.com, you can see every show that is on the cable, if you don't have cable connection. You can also see it on Facebook. Right now, we're streaming to Facebook. So you can stream live, and if you're home now and had Facebook, you could look at it.
So I mean, I've been debating on whether to change channels or from my dish to.
No, so if anyone didn't hear Macy, you can find all of the content on WCTV8.com. You can just load it up. You can watch it right on your computer.
Well, what if you don't have a computer?
Go to a friend's house. The library. Befriend a teenager. They carry him around. Are there any other questions or comments on Article 13? Okay, like I said, that's Australian ballot. We'll be voting on that on Tuesday. I'm sure Macy will appreciate your vote. Article 14. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate from the general fund the sum of $25,000 to help support the home health, maternal and child health, and hospice care provided in patients' homes and in community settings by the visiting nurse and hospice for Vermont and New Hampshire? This is also by petition. It is an Australian ballot article. Is there anybody who would like to speak on behalf of the visiting nurses? I do not see anyone. Were you just waving, Ed?
Yeah.
No worries. Okay. So there's no comments on Article 14. Moving to Article 15. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $3,247 to help support outpatient mental health and substance abuse services by the staff of Healthcare and Rehabilitation Services, Inc., also by petition? Is there somebody who would like to speak regarding this article? I see none. Article 16, shall the town appropriate the sum of $3,000 to Southeastern Vermont Community Action to assist Woodstock in responding to the emergency needs of the community and providing all available and applicable services to families and individuals in need? This is also an Australian ballot article. Is there anybody who wants to speak? Yes, Jacob, straight back from you. On behalf of SEVCA.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Prothero, and I'm an employee of SEVCA. And I wanted to let you know that SEVCA is a remarkable organization serving Windham and Windsor counties. We were formed in 1965 as part of the nationwide war on poverty and chartered as a community action agency. We are founded on the belief that poverty need not be a permanent condition, that people can be empowered to rise out of poverty, and that the strength of our communities is measured by the quality of life of everyone within them. We offer a number of services, including crisis resolution for homeless prevention, heating assistance, and other basic needs. We have Head Start for early education services. We also offer emergency home repairs. Our economic development programs are micro business development, financial literacy courses. We even have a matched savings program, and we help people with income tax preparation. We have some thrift stores. We offer home weatherization as well. And in the town of Woodstock, in the past year, SEVCA has served 81 individuals in 40 families. And we've provided services valuing over $75,000. $64,000 of that was to weatherize homes here in Woodstock. You can see our full report in your town meeting report. This year, SEVCA is requesting level funding from the town of Woodstock. That's $3,000. We thank you for your long-time commitment to this work in this community, and we thank you for your consideration for future funding.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on Article 16? Seeing none, we'll move along to Article 17. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $1,500 for the support of Senior Solutions, formerly Council on Aging for Southeastern Vermont, for help to support seniors and their families who are trying to remain at home and not be placed in a nursing home? This is also by petition. Another Australian ballot article. Is anybody here to speak on behalf?
Hi, I'm Gary Shaw from Senior Solutions, the Council on Aging. We're one of the oldest states in the country, so it gives us a lot to do as a Council on Aging, and we cover this area. We appreciate the support that you've given us in the past and hope that you'll support us in the future. And I'm looking forward to talking at the Thompson Center on March 13th. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on Article 17? Seeing none, Article 18, shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $298 for the support of the Public Health Council of the Upper Valley to help continuing public health coordination for residents in the areas of substance misuse, elder care, oral health, emergency preparedness, and healthy living? This is also by Australian ballot. Anyone who would like to comment on Article 18? Seeing none. Article 19. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $1,250 to support programming of the Spectrum Teen Center? Our objective is to engage teens in healthy activities and make youth feel supported, welcomed, and included. There is no charge to attend our programs. This is by Australian ballot also. Is somebody here who would like to speak on behalf of Spectrum? Seeing none, we will move along to Article 20. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $2,000 to support the mission of WISE, Women's Information Services, Inc., in providing free crisis intervention and support services to victims of domestic and sexual violence, prevention education, and training to community members and professionals? Is there anybody who would like to speak on behalf of WISE? It's a compliant crowd today. Seeing none, Article 21, shall the town of Woodstock appropriate the sum of $30,000 for the Ottaquechee Health Foundation? OHF is a nonprofit community resource that provides funding and support for individuals with limited financial means to help meet critical health and wellness needs such as medical and dental care, eyeglasses, hearing aids, dentures, prescription co-payments, and short-term caregiver services. This is also by petition, Australian ballot. Is there somebody here who would like to speak on behalf of Ottaquechee Health Foundation? Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Dillon. I want to thank you for your support presently, in the past, as well as the future. Last year, 45% of our grants in total were given to residents of Woodstock, and that was, statistically speaking, 58 grants totaling $77,000. So thanks again for your support. So critically needed.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on Article 21? Yes.
I personally don't know a lot about the organization, but given that they're asking for $30,000 and they gave grants totaling $70,000, it seems like a good return on investment.
There's a lot of that. If there are no other questions or comments on Article 21, we will move to Article 22. Shall the town of Woodstock appropriate the sum of $2,500 for Windsor County Partners for youth mentoring services provided to the children in Windsor County? By Australian ballot. Is Bob still here? No? Oh, Lynn's here. Yes.
Hi, my name is Lynn Morrell. I'm a member of the board of Windsor County Partners and the treasurer. And I want to encourage you to support this organization, which Town of Woodstock has been gracious enough to do for many years. Windsor County Partners is in its 45th year of serving youth and kids in Windsor County. And we're on the verge of changing our name, so soon you're going to be seeing Windsor County Mentors. We'll have the same logo, but it'll have a different name. It's a little more descriptive of what the organization does. Over these 45 years, we've served over nearly 1,500 kids. And most of you know what Big Brothers and Big Sisters is. This is our local version, very, very closely matches that. We're building up to, hopefully by the end of this year, 50 mentorships, active mentorships. We're doing this partially by having 3 regional staff. So there's one for south part of the county, one for mid-county, and one for north. And they're out there doing something which I'm going to ask some of you right now to do, if you could, and that's to become a mentor. We have about 1,000 kids estimated in this county who could use a mentorship. And we're probably serving all the mentoring programs in the county, maybe 100 of those kids. So there's a big need. So if anyone here thinks they could spend a couple of hours a week with a kid that would really appreciate it, see Bob, our executive director, or any of us, go on the website, give us a phone call, whatever. We're working closely with Empower Up, who has a program in Woodstock, and our programs are somewhat complementary. They work more in the school, we work outside the school. And so, we're hoping to get a lot more mentorships going in Woodstock in the next year. So anyway, anything you can do to help us is appreciated, either by being a mentor and certainly by voting for us on the Australian ballot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. There are no other comments on Article 22. We will move to Article 23. Shall the town of Woodstock appropriate the sum of $500 to Green Mountain RSVP and Volunteer Center of Windsor County to develop opportunities for people age 55 and older to positively impact the quality of life in the community of Woodstock through volunteer service? Is there anyone here who would like to speak on behalf of Green Mountain RSVP? Seeing none, we will move to Article 24. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be allocated to the Woodstock Area Chamber of Commerce for operational expenses of the Mechanic Street Welcome Center for fiscal year 2019-2020. Any questions or comments on Article 24? Yes, Ed.
Does that include the building or just, what is it all included? Does the building need new?
I believe this is for staffing, isn't it? Yeah. This is, I can take you back a few years. When we built that building, the select board was very concerned that it not be unoccupied and subject to wear and tear and vandalism that could otherwise occur. So I think that's where this comes from, is to help the chamber to make sure that it's staffed when it's open.
It's fully staffed?
Well,
Somebody there.
there's always somebody there.
When it's open, to be sure that they have staff on duty. It's
So
not-
the building hasn't got to be torn down or something and rebuilt or?
We have one person there available to answer questions, give directions, greet the public when they come in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on Article 24? Article 25, shall the town of Woodstock vote to appropriate the sum of $36,100 as the town share of service for the Woodstock Area Council on Aging to run the Thompson Senior Center? The Thompson is an important community resource, providing daily meals, medical and area transportation, and an array of health, educational, and social services that assist residents to age well. Is there somebody here? Is Deanna here? Yes, right in the back.
I'm Deanna Jones, and I'm the executive director for the Thompson. Sometimes I share testimonials when I'm here, and I think really that's the most important thing. But maybe Eddie or someone else will have something to say too. And this year I felt it was really important to share some statistics with you of what's really happening at the Thompson in numbers. So just over the past 4 years, we've seen an increase of, on average, 250 new participants every year for the last 4 years. Our area is aging, and Woodstock, in fact, has a median age of 7 years older than the rest of Vermont. It's a wonderful center with many things happening every day. But the Meals on Wheels in particular has grown in the last 2 years by over 1,500 meals. So we're almost at 10,000 Meals on Wheels a year. And transportation also in the last 2 years has grown by over 1,200 rides. So the services are really booming and meeting the needs of a lot of people in our area. We ask for amounts from all the towns that we serve, and that amount is about 8% of our budget every year. So I think what I'd really like to ask is just that you recognize the value of what the Thompson offers this town for that amount, and certainly let me know if there's any questions. And our report is on page 98 that gives more details as well. But thank you for the opportunity to share that with you.
Thank you. Yes, Ed. It's on.
Okay. I'm just one example of going up every day, having a meal, and sometimes I don't like the meal, but I also don't go away hungry. And I make it my main meal, so I don't have to cook for myself, and that's another story. But anyway, I enjoy doing what I do up there. I wish there wasn't maybe some little bit of negative comments up there, but I just keep them hidden and try and catch up with the proper people that I'm supposed to ask.
Yes, right behind you, Molly.
Hey, Patrick Proctor. So I just wanted to mention that this is something that I think, in particular, there's a senior center, and everybody pictures themselves as, being outside of the scope or the Venn diagram of necessity of that until it becomes a necessity. And, I personally, my mother in the past 2 years had an illness that had her go from somebody who was highly mobile, highly independent, traveling on vacations by herself, did her own thing all over the place, to somebody who can't drive herself and has trouble with cooking and food preparation and that kind of thing. And it was a very short span where she went from being a highly, highly independent individual until really needing assistance. And I know that in the town she's in, outside of Boston, having the resource of public services for seniors was like very. It's a great assistance, and for me as her child, it's also like great to know that that's there. And so I think that these things, seem expensive, and they seem like a resource that maybe people conceive in their mind that they don't need. And I think she thought she'd be completely independent till she was 90 years old, but then things changed, and so I think it's a worthwhile funding opportunity.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about Article 25? Seeing none. Article 26, shall the town vote to appropriate and raise by property taxes the sum of $51,250 for the Norman Williams Public Library to help support the operations and maintenance of the library. These funds are over and above the level budgeted support that the town provides to this library for fiscal year 2019 to 2020. Anyone here who'd like to speak on behalf of the library? Yes. Jacob up back left.
Thank you, Jacob. So my name is Amanda Merck. I am the Executive Director of the Norman Williams Public Library. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about why we are asking for your support with this particular article. So the mission of the library is to improve the lives of Woodstockers. And we need funding to do this. Just to give you a sense, like Deanna did, of some of the statistics, the numbers of people that we're actually serving. So we welcomed over 70,000 visitors each year to the library. We are open 6 days a week. We are open late on Tuesdays until 8 p.m. And this means that we are open 49 hours per week. So we need to staff all of those hours and provide top quality services during those hours. And when the visitors come to the library, they are enjoying free access to all of our materials and services. So they're enjoying free access to books, movies, audiobooks. After school, every day, we welcome between 20 and 30, sometimes more, after-school children. And our staff provide enriching activities for these children, including arts and crafts with a healthy snack, tutoring and homework help, technology help, book club, and kids cooking classes, and a children's knitting club. So every day of the week we are providing early childhood literacy through our educational story times. Thank you. So we also offer what we're calling life-changing access to technology and technology tutoring for adults. And Eddie, I would encourage you to come to the library. One of our staff members would absolutely be thrilled to help you find Macy's public television channel on a computer, and we can help you with that anytime. Last year, approximately 3,600 adults used our public computers, public printers, public copiers, and fax machine. 355 adults took advantage of one-to-one tech tutoring. We are also partnering with the staff at the Thompson Senior Center to reach even more adults in this area who need help with technology. So as we go into the year ahead, the library does face some challenges. We need to upgrade our heating and cooling systems, and we are working very hard at raising the funds for that. We consider investing in our building, in our beautiful historic building, to be an investment in the town of Woodstock. So we support families, children, and people of all ages in so many ways in the library, but again, we need the funding to do this. And I guess most importantly, how I feel we improve the lives of people who live in Woodstock is by offering that beautiful, safe, warm space where people can gather. There is a really deep need in each human being to socialize. It has been proven that isolation and loneliness actually lead to health problems. And so we are so happy to see people coming together in the library. People come to play mahjong, people come to play bridge. There are members of our knitting club in the room here today. All of these are ways that you can come and make use of the library and improve your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Molly, can you get right up here? And I will say, if you have a daughter that's a voracious reader, the library is a happy place.
I'm Julia Cook. In addition to being the co-chair of the EDC, I, for my work, am a writer and a journalist, so I'm not going to claim to be impartial to the library and how important it is. But as I was thinking about this article, I realized that I don't know that we have another third space in Woodstock, a space at which everyone is welcome. You don't have to pay to be there, and you can go anyone can be there at any time that it's open, especially in the wintertime. In the summertime, the whole outdoors is our third space, which is important, but in the winter there's nothing else. So I really can't think of a better thing to support.
Thank you.
I'd just like to, Ann McSood, and I agree totally with everything about the public library. I've been visiting that library since 1946, when the children's library was where the newspapers are kept now. I never go in that beautiful building that I don't feel as if I'm home in a way. And I think, as far as institutions go, I think public libraries are among the best. So I think it's money well spent.
Matt, I just want to add
yes.
something quickly. One of the things I've learned from being on the select board is that the library is something that in most towns is 100% funded by taxpayer money. That is not the case in Woodstock. Although it is a public library and the public is welcome, the public does not fully fund our library. And so they are heavily reliant on this special article. They do get some funds from the budget that we just approved this morning, but they're also very heavily dependent on charitable donations, which have been going down for all organizations all across the country. So we as a community need to decide how we're going to support this library, be it through special articles, through the budget, or through you writing checks, personal checks. So I'm a big supporter, and I just wanted to share what I had learned from having been on this board about the status of our special library.
Thank you.
My name is Korsha Drandaria. I'm a volunteer at the public library and have lived in libraries for many, many years, not only this one, but wherever I've lived. I believe it's a place from cradle to grave that you can use, and so it is an extremely important part of any community. So please support the library.
Thank you. There are no other comments on Article 26. Article 27. Shall the town of Woodstock vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $39,000 for the support of Pentangle Arts to provide services to the residents of the town of Woodstock? This is by petition, Australian ballot. I don't think there's anyone from Pentangle here. I'm teasing you, Alita.
Just remember, folks, I had my first kiss right over there. So this organization is very near to my heart. I would say, just in the previous presentations, we do have a very rich nonprofit community. And I feel that we have a great care for some of our older citizens and some of our very young citizens. And I like to think that Pentangle is kind of working in the middle. We have a very vibrant arts and education program where we're taking resident artists into schools for residencies. Our stage is open in the spring for Prosper Valley, for the Show Your Stuff, for Zach's Place. So I just, as we look at the town, and yes, we have an aging demographic, but we also have a lot of youth. We have 12 teenagers working our concession stand. It's a bear to manage, but we are a little bit of a high school employment organization. Our request is level funded, and because we are so thankful for your support, both the voters and the town, we intentionally have free programming. Our Thank You Thursday free movie series, our Brown Bag series, our classical series, the Flurry on the Green, and the Light Garden. If there's anything that nonprofits want from us in terms of fundraisers or a space to sell something, we are there for them. So I hope with the support we get from the community, you realize that we are responsive to the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Alita. Anyone else who'd like to speak about Article 27? Seeing none? Oh, sorry.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a question. I wholly support all of these appropriations, and I think they're not only appropriate but necessary. I just was wondering, from an accounting standpoint, where are these reflected in the budget?
Page 1.
Oh, okay. All right.
And to give a long...
If you look, page 3, if there is a breakdown, and it tells what the voted special articles add a little over 2 cents to the tax rate, all of them combined. It's 2.44 cents.
Okay, just, but where actually in the budget itself
So-
are they reflected?
These are outside of the budget.
To give a longer answer.
Oh, okay.
To give... So all of... So all of these things are not in the budget, but if you approve them on Tuesday, they are added to the tax rate that is collected from you. So you get to decide your own final tax rate.
These are kind of like each one is a line item that's added to the budget if approved, basically.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yes, Alita. Molly. Could you?
I just wanted to remind and sort of go back to what Sonia said when she started, that your tax rate is largely affected by the school budget, not by these special articles. Well, everybody should look at them carefully. I think Paige may correct me, but how many people showed up for the budget meeting for the school?
11 total and 5 were from our own school.
So that tells us that we are spending a lot of time here. Here we are almost at whatever. And maybe that we need to encourage people to show up at those school board meetings and really look at those budgets.
Yeah, but that's only 80% of what we spend. Okay, if there are no other comments on Article 27, we will move to Article 28. Shall the voters of the town of Woodstock appropriate the sum of $2,500 to help support cover home repair in their home repair and weatherization services to the residents of Woodstock? Is there anyone here who wants to speak about Article 28? Yes, all the way in back left. Is that Ruth?
This is Ruth Hunter. I'd like to speak for Cover. I know that during Irene, they were over here putting skirts on the mobile homes. I know that they don't charge anything for this, it's all volunteer. And they also make ramps for people who are handicapped so that they can get into their homes. They may be in Lebanon, but they work in Woodstock also. And I just think it's a very worthwhile organization, and they also have a store where you can buy inexpensive furniture and building supplies.
Thank you, Ruth. Anyone else who wanted to comment on Article 28? Seeing none. Article 29, to see if the town will vote either or both of the exemptions listed for the buildings known as the Homestead, located on land owned by the Homestead, Inc., for a period of 5 years. This is also Australian ballot. Part A is an exemption from all local property taxes, including local, education, highway, and town general. And B, exemption from state education property taxes, and to raise by property taxation a sum of money to pay the exempted amount to the appropriate entity. Anyone who would like to speak? Yes, all the way in the back right.
Candace Coburn, I'm on the board of the Homestead, and thank you for considering this article. The Homestead is a place for our elderly people to go. There is a sliding scale. So for many people who have lived all their lives in this area, it is one of the only places they can afford to go to. So thank you for considering this.
Is there a question? Sorry, I saw a hand. And for anyone who doesn't understand, on these special articles under Act 60 and our Act 46, if we exempt these buildings, we still have to pay the education tax to the state on them. That's what the second part is about.
I just am not familiar with the Homestead. Could we have clarification? Are they a nonprofit or are they a for-profit entity? Or I don't know if anybody can speak to that.
Nonprofit.
Nonprofit. Yeah,
Yes. And the next article is their
Matt,
other property, Merton's house. Sorry.
Sorry, Joby Thompson. I just wondered, what other buildings do we do this for, or are there other places?
There are a number.
Are there?
And several of them are coming up.
Okay.
Merton's house, the Masonic Lodge. Basically, nonprofits, if they don't have to pay property tax on their building, they can use that money to provide the services that they do to the community.
How about the Thompson Senior Center? Are they included?
They do. And these are staggered. So generally they run for 5. I know there's one in here for a 10-year exemption. What's that? Oh, okay. So the first time it's 10 years, Phil said, and after that it's increments of 5 years. So every 5 years they need to get a new exemption voted by the voters. So basically you're saying we value what you provide to the community, so we're going to exempt you.
Thank you.
Yes, right behind you, Jacob.
Isabel Chiquan, I'm a fairly new resident here, and I'm wondering in these articles and most of the following ones, is there a dollar amount approximate that we could have an idea? I mean, for A, I understand it's an exemption, but for B, does that mean that the community pays the taxes to the state? So it would be helpful to know how much we're talking about.
You'd have to look at the grand list. And
That would be very difficult to do right now.
Sure.
You could call the town hall, speak to the listers. They have the grand list value of the property, and then somebody should be able to help you figure the tax rate and what that would be.
Jennifer's right in the front row. Is one of our listers.
We're open 8 to noon, Monday through Friday, and you're welcome to come in anytime and look at the grand list, and we can help you figure out what you want to figure out.
It just varies in each year, as the values change. It depends on what the state sets the education tax rate at. We don't have control of that.
But I don't believe that the community is responsible for making up the foregone taxes paid. So it's not like our education tax goes up because this property has been exempted. I mean, yes, on a statewide basis, eventually, sort of, it does, but it's so diffuse that it's not a direct requirement that the citizens make up for what these organizations aren't paying. It's not like that.
No, that is what it is.
No, no, but not directly, only through the mechanism that you just stated, which is that the state then readjusts the tax rate because it's all sent to Montpelier. It's all very complicated.
No, we pay what we exempt.
The citizens pay what we exempt.
The citizens pay. That's what the second part is about.
Then I'm wrong.
Is that we raise by taxation what we exempt. We can exempt the town general and highway taxes and just not collect them, and
that's not the way. Oh, then I'm completely wrong.
But with the education tax, we actually have to reimburse the state for what they would otherwise be getting.
Ouch, never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind, I'm wrong.
Yes, it was a very good question. And like I said, it's hard. You couldn't actually warn it with an amount in the article because we don't know what the state education tax rate is yet. So you know the value of the property. Once the state sets the education tax rate, then you can calculate what that amount is. That's the article's on page 22, but you could. Oh no, that was just the total. There may be some information on special articles in here. And really, the only thing I would say about that is that would be up to the organization. These are by petition, so when these groups write out their petition, they could include that amount. That might be useful going forward. But when something is, if you go out and get a petition and get enough signatures, it's on the warning as written. We can't change that.
It might also be valuable if you stated the number that what the total of all of these comes to on the tax rate.
Yes, it's a little over 2 cents, almost 2.5 cents on the tax rate. Yes, all the way in the back. The microphone's.
Beth Fish, Phil Swanson's administrative assistant. On page 3, under the tax rate, line 4 is voted exempt education taxes, and that is your line for the amount.
Thank you, Beth.
Yes, Charlie.
Just a little more information, because the town of Plymouth is going through this. The Bethany Birch's camp is looking to exempt their property from the education tax rate. So it might be informative for that purpose. Religious organizations are exempt if the Attorney General's Office of the Department of Property Valuation determines that it's a religious purpose and exempt from property taxes, in which the state picks up the difference. If it's a state office building, they don't pay property taxes, and the state reimburses part of that, what would have been collected in something called the payment in lieu of taxes as a pilot program. But what we do locally in exempting organizations then is borne by the local voters. So there are some that are borne by all state voters and some that are borne just by local voters.
Yes, Joe. Hold on, it's okay, Joe. Mike's coming. And the nice thing is we're covering all the next articles as well.
Maybe it might be helpful if when these folks petition for exemption, they identify the amount that they exempt for the previous year or the previous petition and get some sense of what that amount is. Maybe it won't be exact,
Yeah,
but
that
it'll give you kind of an idea of what's going on.
Oh, I agree with you, Joe, but you're talking about people who only have to do it every 5 years, and 5 years from now, they're going to have forgotten this conversation, unfortunately. No, you can't require, I mean, it could be suggested. When somebody hands you a petition to sign. Yeah. These come up from time to time. I mean, the big thing about that reimbursement is the state doesn't want us to just exempt all the big properties in town so we don't pay education tax on them. Any other questions or comments? Great. Okay, Article 30, to see if the town will vote either or both of the exemptions listed for the buildings known as Merton's House, located on land owned by the Homestead, Inc., for a period of 5 years. Exemption from all local property taxes, including local education, highway, and town general. Exemption from state education property taxes, and to raise by property taxation a sum of money to pay the exempted amount to the appropriate entity. And this Merton's House is the other building owned by the Homestead. It's they're more have more managed care. Yes.
Thanks.
I didn't see you there, Carol.
I was hiding. I'm Carol Cunningham. I'm the administrator of Merton's House, and we're a 14-bed facility. We're licensed by the state as long-term care. We've been open since 1987, and we've admitted just under 300 people. We have people that are here from our community, from our surrounding sort of school district community, and places all over the state. We also have admissions that come from out of state because their children are now living here. We do provide hospice care when needed. And the other thing I wanted to say is we employ anywhere from 30 to 35 people. We have health and dental insurance and pension for people that have worked there long enough. We appreciate the support we've had in the past and hope to have it in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else on Article 30? Okay, Article 31, to see if the town will vote to extend tax-exempt status to the South Woodstock Fire Protection Association, Incorporated, for a period of 5 years, July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2024. Exemption from all local property taxes, including local education, highway, and town general. Exemption from the state education property taxes, and to raise by property taxation a sum of money to pay the exempted amount to the appropriate entity. Anyone here who would like to speak on behalf of the South Woodstock Fire Department? Did David take off? Pretty self-explanatory. It's the fire station in South Woodstock. Article 32, to see if the town will vote either or both of the exemptions listed for the buildings known as the Prosper Community House for a period of 5 years. Exemption from all local property taxes, including local education, highway, and town general, and exemption from the state education property taxes, and to raise by property taxation a sum of money to pay the exempted amount to the appropriate entity. Anyone here who'd like to speak on behalf of the Prosper Community House? Nobody? It's a small building out the north part of town. There's a small, at the end of the North Bridgewater Road, there's a small stone building. They have community suppers there. I took my hunter's education course there when I was a young man. So did Jacob. We've held Eagle Scout ceremonies there. Other uses, Charlie?
Yeah, frequently there's community events that are held there, sometimes wedding receptions. People are apt to have funeral services at that facility. It's sort of a community venue in the Prosper section of town.
Any other questions or comments? Article 33. Petition for exemption of all local property taxes, including local education, highway, and town general, for the land improvements buildings owned by Woodstock Associates known as the Woodstock Recreation Center, consisting of the recreation building, Little Theater, pools, 2.5 acres of land, and the parking lot across the street for a period of 5 years, as well as the improvements and buildings used as a tree farm by the Woodstock Associates for a period of 5 years. Any questions or comments on Article 33?
I want to do one.
Oh, Jill, sorry.
So I want to talk about the rec center, just like Sonia talked about the library. In most towns, this is totally supported by town taxes. Our rec center is supported by private funds and a foundation, and we support it. We partially support it. So this is another way for us to support something that we don't have to pay 100% of.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on Article 33? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Barbara.
Barbara Simmons. Thank you. As a relative newcomer still, I didn't realize that the rec center had that type of funding. Is there a sense of what percent the town is funding the rec center and what percent has to be raised by other means?
It's in there.
I can't remember right now, but I'll find out for you.
Yeah, I was on that board when I was on the select board, and part of it was given by Mrs. Faulkner, and then it's been, it's grown. But Jill's absolutely right. If you go to the town of Hartford, their rec department is completely funded by the taxpayers. In fact, when our rec directors go to meetings of other rec directors, they're always stunned that our rec director has to be involved in fundraising. So, yeah. Yes, Ed.
I'm just wondering how the two buildings foundations are, if there's going to have to be something done to them. Who pays for them?
They're owned by the Woodstock Associates. So the buildings are not owned by the town. That's why they're looking for a tax exemption. They're owned by a nonprofit called the Woodstock Associates.
In regard to the last question on funding, on page 86, there's a letter from the rec center, and it's 30% of the total budget comes from the town, and the other 60% approximately is from private fundraising.
Yeah. Thank you. I knew it was in there. Any other questions or comments on Article 33? Is there another one? Oh, Deanna, sorry.
This is about this article, but really multiple articles, and just a question for consideration maybe, that where Jill and Sonia both said that the library and rec center, other towns fund them more fully than we do. I know that's the same for senior centers, and is there any sort of way to, instead of have us all petition all of you for months ahead of time, that those be moved more to our line items in the budget instead of getting time spent on signatures and so forth, so that we are more similar to other towns that fund their departments, if you want, or nonprofits more similarly.
So we can consider that, if that's the will of the people, that's certainly something we can put in the budget. Obviously, that means that the budget itself would go up. I would say that one of the downsides, for example, of having a library that's 100% funded by taxpayers is that when things get tight, they're the first ones to get fired. And we saw it, like Lebanon had to lay off quite a few of its librarians recently. So you probably don't want us determining how good the library is. That is the benefit of keeping it separate. But that's something we can talk about, especially if these organizations start really having, life-critical budget problems. We should have a discussion as a town as to how much this should be part of our budget and how much time we spend discussing special articles, and you have to spend getting signatures and the whole 9 yards.
Question? Joe, got a question?
Joe?
I think it'd be, I think it'd be a mistake to miss the point that this should be a feather in our community's hat, because we value these programs and these issues and the people they serve. Even though it doesn't come out of the taxes, we're willing to do it on our own. And as a community, we support ourselves. And I think that point should not be missed.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on Article 33?
Matt, I just have a general question. Since I'm obviously new to this idea of tax exemption and how it plays out, when looking at our tax rates compared to those of other towns, there was a category that I didn't really understand, and I think it might be this category, which is that I think it's called local agreement, and I think it's the local agreement to tax exempt to pay these taxes. Woodstock actually exempts more than most towns. We're at the 96th percentile for how much we exempt in terms of, cents for every $100 assessed. And I wondered, I assume so the national parklands and so forth, like all of that is, what? That's tax exempt by statute. Okay, so it might be good to have to be able to provide a list of all the organizations. And
I would suspect it has something to do with our relative size compared to the surrounding communities and the number of historic buildings that we have. For example, in Bridgewater, we didn't have a library, a Masonic building.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that's part of it. Is just we're a little bit of coming from being the Shire town.
Right.
We've kind of been the hub of this general area. So some of those services are located here.
So I empathize with the people here who are trying to, I'm also trying to get the grasp of how many properties, if these come up in a staggered way, it's hard to grasp what the big picture is in terms of how much we're exempting, but we do seem to exempt more than other towns, which is interesting.
Great. Any other questions or yes, John?
I'm also new to John Spector, so I'm also new to this concept, but are we not, unlike all the other similar articles, are we not voting to raise by property taxation a sum, equal to pay for it? That clause seems to be missing.
Yeah, I wondered about that. It's how they wrote the article, so.
For the rec center, you mean specifically?
Are you then going to be, well, I guess you'll all have to solve that problem, but well, can I propose an amendment to article? I can't.
No, because it's
by petition.
Got it. That would be very helpful if it were on the floor, but it is Australian ballot, so we can't change it in any way. Yes, there's a question in the front here.
Hi, Amy McElroy. I have a question about the library funding, and looking in the report, I wasn't exactly clear, but it looked like we're appropriating $150,000 and then maybe another $59,000. And it would be nice to, does the library come to the select board with their budget, and that's how you come up with the amount that you appropriate, that you recommend we appropriate? Right, okay. I just was wondering, that's a big number. It would be nice to see a little more information about how that was arrived at, but.
I think sometimes, too, the select board is constrained by limits on how much the overall budget can go up.
Mm-hmm.
So then if groups want more than that, they ask them to petition it directly to the voters for that authority. That's what happens in several of these cases, I know.
But is it correct that the regular appropriation this year is $150,000, and then the $59,000 is extra for things they need over above that? Okay, thank you.
It's not that it's extra above, it's not that it's extra for this year, it's just that they're asking for more than the select board is willing to put in the budget without the voters' direct approval.
Thank you.
Is that, Amanda, would that be fair?
$59,000. It's actually $51,250, so.
But they'll take 59 if you give it to them. All right, any other questions or comments about Article 33? And these are all similar, so it's fine. Article 34, to see if the town will vote either or both of the exemptions listed below for the land and buildings owned by the Woodstock Masonic Association, Inc. for a period of 5 years. Exemption from all local property taxes, including local education, highway, and town general. Exemption from the state education property taxes, and to raise by property taxation a sum of money to pay the exempted amount to the appropriate entity. Anyone here to speak on behalf of the Masonic Association? I have a question. Is it still occupied by the Freemasons? It is. They use a small part of the building. The main hall, they rent out and, quite frankly, donate to a lot. I know we hold our scout meetings there. They have blood drives there, community suppers, book stock. I mean, they're just, it's very highly, I think it's probably one of the most highly utilized spaces, just due to its size and relative ease of use.
The full kitchen?
Yeah, and having a full kitchen, so there are, they have suppers there. The other part that people might not understand is that the Masonic Lodge actually owns the parking lot, or a big chunk of the parking lot that the health center uses. So, and so if you don't vote this exemption, they have to charge the health center more for parking. Yeah. So there's a lot of moving pieces there. But yes, it is very well utilized space. Any other questions or comments on Article 24? Article 25, to see if the town of Woodstock will vote to exempt Woodstock Community Play School, does business as Rainbow Play School, from paying taxes on the play school building located at 281 Barnard Road for a period of 10 years. Exemption from all local property taxes, including local education, highway, and town general. Exemption from the state education property taxes, and to raise by property taxation a sum of money to pay the exempted amount to the appropriate entity. Anyone here representing Rainbow? This is the former Mount Tom Base Lodge. And I think, Charlie, we already spoke about the need for affordable childcare in town. So this being their first year, that's why they're asking for the 10-year exemption. And yes.
I don't have anything to say about this particular article, but in general, with all of these last articles, it seems to me that a tremendous amount of energy and a tremendous amount of kind of busy work almost is going into managing what apparently the state of Vermont has set up as an extraordinarily cumbersome legal process for tax-exempt status for not-for-profits. And I would suggest that it would behoove this town and other towns and the villages and the associations that represent them to speak to their representatives to try and streamline this process so people aren't spending so much effort and time on what in many states is pro forma. It's, if you're not for profit, you don't pay property taxes. It's just written into the statutes.
But if we make them look at it, they might make it more complicated. Sorry, Charlie. Any other questions or comments on this article? Seeing none. Article 36, to entertain the discussion of any other business of interest to the legal voters, such discussion shall not be construed in any manner as binding municipal action. This is wide open, Jeffrey. Anything that you want to bring up, you can under this, but none of it's binding.
Jeffrey Kahn. Earlier, Sonia, you mentioned embarrassing Candace Coburn, and I think it's time to embarrass you a little bit, because we know you've sold your home, and that you and Matt will be moving, and it's a big loss for Woodstock. And just want to thank you for the expertise you've brought to this board and for your work for this town. So thank you very much.
We haven't said we're going to let her go yet.
Subject to voter approval.
Be a special article.
Yes, Sally.
Hi, I'm Sally Miller. I'm the coordinator for the Economic Development Commission. And one of the projects that the EDC has funded, which didn't get mentioned earlier, is a visioning project. And you might have seen some information out in the front lobby. For those folks who were here back in 2005, we actually did a project with the Vermont Council for Rural Development, and it was quite successful. So this is an opportunity to have another community conversation and engage everybody in what we want to see for our community. We have a lot of great projects going on right now. They're not all necessarily connected, so we hope that this is an opportunity to get some new folks in with the conversation, and also to, engage people that have been around for a while, and all diversity, old folks, all of us old folks now, a diversity, and hear some different voices. So if you're interested in being part of the conversation, we're just starting right now. There's some cards out in the front lobby. You can sign up on the email list, or my email is also on these cards, so you can send me a note directly. But keep an eye out. We'll be around for the next few months working on this project, so hope to see you. Thank you.
Yes, all the way in the back, Jacob.
I think it's about 10 years ago that the issue of joining the village and the town came up. And I would like to see the board back that again, because I think it's a long time due that we air this issue again, and maybe it'll work this time.
We're that far apart.
We hear you.
We hear
Yes. Was there, over here, sorry. I will mention as he's making his way around that this is Jacob's farewell tour. As of next month, he will be a legal voter. And didn't get a chance to thank Molly before she left, but I'm sure I can entice her with pie for a couple more years.
Hi, my name is Paige Hiller. I am the board chair of what we finally call the new Act 46 district, the new MUD. And I just wanted to say that it was disappointing to only see 11 people at our budget presentation last Monday. So I hope that when you leave today, you will pick up this flyer that's available outside. Please read it, educate yourself on what you're going to be voting on Tuesday. I think it's important that we, just because we're a new district that involves now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 towns, with 3 active elementary school campuses, and then our middle school, high school, 7 through 12. We really need to support our children and our schools, as well as our teachers and administrators. It's really vital to us to continue that support so that our children are not only educated really well, but they can leave and go off to colleges and hopefully return to the state of Vermont as well, to work here, to run their own companies, to grow our economy. I think it's really, really important. We worked really hard this year, just to give you a little synopsis, because last year we found that we thought bringing everybody together would lower our taxes, and we found out that that was a really different story, that our CLAs went down, which is not a good thing. It works against us.
Common level of appraisal.
Common
So when
level of
houses sell
appraisal.
for more than they're appraised for, it affects that.
So you
which
want a
happens
CLA to go up to be in your benefit. The education rate that was set by the state was much higher than we had anticipated. The governor had increased it by 9 cents, so that tax incentive that we agreed to when we joined Act 46 of 8 cents went down to a penny. So it was very challenging last year to give us a really great tax rate for education spending. This year we worked really hard to make a difference. And I have to say that we are under penalty phase, which the state allows you to spend so much money per pupil spend. And we are under that at the elementary school. We are at about a 16,000 per pupil spend. At the high school, we're at about a 19,000. You amortize that to get your total spend of 17,900. Last year's tax rate was at $1.69, whereas this year we're at $1.62. So we worked very hard within our budget to show you some breaks in your taxes. Woodstock this year will be seeing a decrease of 2.26% in your tax rate from last year. So your total tax rate for this year for education spending will be $1.66 versus $1.70 from last year. So I'm really pleased with what our board achieved over the last year. It's been a crazy ride with Act 46. I never in my wildest dreams expected what we were going to be seeing. But I have to say we have a tentative agreement with our teachers, and we are the first one in the state to have a contract where everybody has the same salary grid. They have the same benefits, and they have the same health care benefits as well across the entire district. And we are the first in the state to come to that conclusion within the last month. We are also providing full-day pre-K coverage for free in our 3 elementary school campuses. And we decided to invest in that so that we find special ed costs go down when we have our kiddos in our hands earlier on. We find that we can really address things much quicker, and that they don't escalate, they actually get better for those kiddos. Another big change is that we are having a primary school in Reading, where 4, 5, and 6 will be coming to the Woodstock Elementary School. We found that the class sizes of only 5 to 6 children per class was not beneficial educationally nor socially. And there's a small financial break with those moves. We also are including STEAM labs and STEAM programs in every school, including our relationship with the NUVU organization from Boston. We are the only public school in the United States who has that relationship. The other relations are with private schools throughout the country. So this is a huge win, I think, for our area. But I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up. Please read it. There was a lot of hard work that went into it. We got to figure out how we get you all into a budget presentation meeting across the district, because 11 people just doesn't cut it. We really need you guys to be invested and to be supportive of our youth within town. But thank you all for your support in the past, the present, and the future. I really appreciate it. And I also have to say to Phil, he was one of my strongest mentors when I started about 13 years ago as a board member, and I can't thank him enough for the guidance that he has given me over the years. So thank you.
Good pupil.
Did you have a comment? Then we'll get to you next, Ed.
I had a question about the EDC. I was wondering how the funds are, who decides and how is it decided to allocate the funds from the 1% tax?
Sure, we had talked about it a little earlier, and the EDC reviews different grant requests or different programs and recommends different spending to the select board for approval. But the mission of the EDC is to plan and implement sustainable economic development, and it falls into probably 4 different buckets, 4 different committees in which we work, and we look to support different programs within those buckets and recommend those to the select board. So it comes through the EDC, recommended to the select board, and voted on at that point. So, yep.
So the short answer is the select board decides on recommendation.
I would also just mention, while we're, Patrick Proctor, while we're talking about attendance of the school board meeting, there also are grant writing workshops that the EDC hosts twice a month or once a month. And people are invited to write grants, and they've actually had a problem with lack of applicants who've done the research to provide grants that would be sufficient for them.
Owners of a lodging place, so we do pay the 1%, and so we were trying to understand where that money goes, which is fine. We're happy to pay that, but we're just trying to understand, since we're new owners, how it's allocated, and maybe there doesn't need to be a correlation between where the money comes from and where it goes, but that's what we're trying to understand.
Your customers come to a meeting? You do.
Well, I do, because they compare prices. So they.
The price is uniform across all levels.
No, the price. No, it's not. In the village, but not elsewhere.
I'm happy to sit down with you and talk to you about it and show you where all the monies have been spent. We have a pretty detailed report.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
Just wondering what the process is
Oh, yeah.
and what the thinking is behind it.
Sure.
And yes, Ed had a question, and then I'll get to you, Joe. He's been patiently waiting.
I don't have a question, but I got an answer for you. Monday night was so slippery, so cold, and so windy, I just didn't feel like I could walk over, because I live right across the street.
I don't blame you, because I didn't want to go out either.
So anyway, that is why you didn't see me, but I intended to be there.
Thanks, Ed. Joe DiNatale.
Thank you. In terms of the school board meetings, I'll just speak for myself. Looking at those budgets and those numbers sometimes gets a little mind-boggling. And it gets it's extremely complicated. It's hard to understand sometimes. And just sitting there and listening to numbers doesn't really tell a story sometimes. Not to me. It doesn't satisfy my curiosity. So if there was some way they could probably streamline it and make it understandable for thick heads like mine, that it would probably be easier for people to come to and understand. And as far as the lady in the back, I would suggest she come to the meetings. The first Thursday of every month, EDC meets, and you can learn a lot from just coming to a meeting about how it's allocated, where it goes, ask questions, talk to people on the board.
Thank you.
Barbara Simmons. I'm sure you advertised the meeting widely, but I failed to see that, and honestly, I was thinking we'd be doing school budget this afternoon. I just thought that this today was going to be kind of the usual format, and that we'd do this school budget this afternoon, so I had not seen the posting for that, so if you could advertise it even more widely, that would be great. Thank
And that
you.
was a change with our Act 46 with the unified school district. We no longer have a solely Woodstock elementary school budget to vote on. It's all Australian ballot. Yes, Jill?
I think listening to all the comments, I think we need to start doing some education. So it's taken me 2 years to work out how the town is organized and run. And maybe we could do some education classes so that we can help teach all the new people what goes on, what the boards are, what each is responsible for, how our money is spent, and we can work with the school board to do that.
And also, you can, I believe that there's a local access channel that broadcasts some of these meetings, and you can watch them, and you can glean quite a bit of information. Any other questions or comments, or if there are none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Jeffrey's raised his hand, and Jane's got a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you all.
Nice job, man.